All aboard the hype train. This is the Linux video that is going to be the fastest, simplest route for setting up your own private cloud, your own private Linux server. And this is, of course, using Sandstorm. Now, before we get into it, we're actually going to show you some of the cool stuff that you can do with Sandstorm. Now, Sandstorm is one of several packages, or several projects, I should say. Host is the other really popular project that we got a lot of requests for. Sandstorm kind of edged it out a little bit, and I'll confess that I think that Sandstorm is a little bit newer of a project than Host, but their approach to security is really interesting. They're actually using some bleeding edge stuff. And you don't need to know about the particulars of this, but you should know that, you know, if you're going to work in the industry, you're going to be a web developer or a programmer, anybody that works on Linux systems or system administration, one of the things that makes Sandstorm interesting is that all the different applications, the different Linux applications that you would install that'll support your cloud services, like document sharing in the cloud and collaborative document editing in the cloud, and I say the cloud, but I really mean just your server, is that they all run in what are called containers. It's containerization, and you can Google that and read more about it. We'll probably have more videos about it, but Sandstorm is really cool because it isolates every different thing that you're going to do. So we're going to show you how to set up WordPress, and we're going to show you how to do a whole bunch of other stuff. We're going to show you some stuff that's really cool in terms of applications, and then once that's done, we're going to actually show you how to install it. Now, if you know what you're doing, you can probably get through this installation in 10-15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. But if you want to go step by step, this video is going to be about 30-35 minutes, and it's going to take probably about 6 or 7 minutes to show you the cool stuff. Just some of it's just a taste, and then it'll take us about 20 minutes to show you how it works. And I've got my friend Grizzle here to help us do the install and take us through setting this thing up. Now, there are two things that I'm not going to cover in this video. That is email and DNS configuration. If you didn't see the first video in this series, setting up your own Linux server, you should go watch that, or at least learn more about it. This is sort of the next step. So this assumes that you've got your domain name set up and you've got a place to host it set up. Now, in the last video, we were using the .tech domains. So that's like if CES.tech they've just signed up for. And so we've partnered with .tech, and you can get your own .tech domain name for $5. We've got a coupon code. There's some more information about that in the description. There's some more information about that in the other video. And then we also are going to show you how to do this with Linode. Although you don't have to use Linode, you can use anything really, DigitalOcean, whatever host you want to use, completely fine. And you can even use Sandstorm's hosting. Sandstorm provides their own hosting, and you can just sign up with them if you think that's a little easier. But generally, you do need your domain name and some kind of a hosting. Generally, don't recommend having your domain name and your hosting through the same company, just for security reasons, just for usually a company that does the domain name really well doesn't really do web hosting all that well. So just something to keep in mind.
At this point, pretty much everything is just click. The hard part of the setup is definitely behind us, and everything Sandstorm from here on out is just point and click and wait.
A lot of waiting. Notice also that the name that your instance was asked for is also the public website. So if you want to access this website from another computer, you can use pwned.sandcats.io or whatever you chose to name your instance. Let's install Etherpad, EtherCalc, Davros, Rocket Chat. Let's go nuts installing applications.
So here's our Etherpad, a much more lightweight install than WordPress, and we've pretty much got word processing in the cloud here.
Etherpad is a pretty cool lightweight alternative to something like Google Docs, if you've maybe used Google Docs in the cloud, or any other sort of cloud document processing. It doesn't have a ton of bells and whistles, but it is capable of saving and loading standard document formats, so you can save from the cloud and load to the cloud any kind of normal document formats that you're working with. And somebody should make an audio version of the cloud browser plugin. That would make this video really funny, probably.
So if you want to share access, you have the share access button, and you can have as many people editing this document as you want. Similar to Google Docs, you just send them a link.
When you share access, you're sharing only access to this one instance, or this one grain, as the Sandstorm people call it.
Yeah, your Etherpad access has nothing to do with your WordPress access.
Now, EtherCalc, like Etherpad, is a cloud application, shared computing, the whole 9 yards. I keep using cloud, and every time I say it, there's somebody that knows what they're doing that's watching this video that's just has a little cold shiver. But it's a cloud-based spreadsheet program, or a browser-based spreadsheet program where all the data runs on the server. So maybe if you're doing, math or physics or something, or biology or chemistry, and you need a spreadsheet type application, well, you can just run it right here. Ta-da! A cloud spreadsheet. Isn't it magical?
Share access. This is pretty much, you know, the same thing as the one before, the Etherpad. This is just the spreadsheet version.
Now, Devros is what they provide for file sharing and file storage. It's a little bit like OwnCloud, but it's different from OwnCloud. It's not really the same feature set exactly. Ta-da! Online file storage. With an easy browser-based push button. I bet you didn't think you would be installing all these open source utilities so easily. And look, they're all accessible from the sidebar.
And as far as we know, 100% less NSA backdoors.
Now, if you're a developer, there's GOGS in WeCan, the Kanban sort of development board. There's also EtherDraw, which is a distributed drawing application. If you want to give your friends access, you guys can all, you know, basically share a whiteboard or share a development board, or, you know, share a, you know, project meeting board or whatever. It's really, really handy. You know, if you and your friends want to work together on like a mobile app, or you and your friends want to work together on a project, you can just install these things, share access, do the whole 9 yards, and really have a, you know, a collaboration platform by using, you know, all the different applications from this thing. You can even install BrowserQuest, which is the open source multiplayer sort of browser game. But this is really, like, if you're an aspiring developer or you want to develop web applications that use WebSockets and other stuff, you can install BrowserQuest, and, you know, it's full open source. You can get all the access to everything that's in here. All right, now that we've shown you all the cool stuff that you can do with Sandstorm, and this is just a taste, there's a whole bunch of other applications. You can install other applications we didn't even show you, experiment, explore. The point of this video is not to show you everything, it's just to give you a taste, and then you go off on your own and explore. And so now, go off on your own and explore. Or if you need a step-by-step, you know, sort of hand-holded installation, let's do that now. Let's actually go through step by step. All right, this should be your Linode control panel profile thingy. If you did your homework and you signed up for Linode, what's the next step? What do you need?
So we're going to go for the cheap package because Sandstorm's not all that demanding, at least not for what we're going to do with it. And this one, 0.15 cents an hour to run. And it's important to note that it only runs when you want it to, so you're not committing too much here.
All right, so it shows our Linode status as being created. And we can see the public IP address, which hopefully we will have taken offline by the time this video goes online.
Don't waste your time.
You little bastards. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to show you is backups. Go ahead and click on Enable on backups. Alright, so the way that backups work on Linode is they're going to charge you an extra $2.50 a month. And what they will do is let you create 3 slots that are used for backups: a daily backup, a 2 to 7 day old backup, and an 18 to 14 day old backup. The 4th backup slot is a user initiated snapshot, and that will remain in place until another user initiated snapshot takes place. So what happens is there's 1 slot, and every day your machine backs up to that slot. But once a week, on the day that you choose, the machine is also backed up to that weekly slot. And then once a month, or once every 14 days in this case, there's another slot that gets backed up to. So you can have a slot, so you can have a backup that's yesterday old, about a week old, or up to 2 weeks old. And this is sort of a good solution without having, you know, 385 copies going into the past. But we're not actually going to enable it because it'll cost money, but this is where you would enable it, and you totally would want to do this. So if the crap hits the fan, you can go restore to yesterday's backup or last week's backup or whatever, and Linode just does everything for you, which is a nice feature.
It's like an autosave for your own personal failures.
And there are going to be if you're watching this channel and you're going to do all this stuff, you're going to have so many failures. You're going to go, like, oh, it's time to update some stuff. Oh, look at that. All of my stuff is gone. I've managed to set the server on fire. Wow, that's
Perhaps,
probably bad.
Maybe we should call them learning experiences.
All right, click on Dashboard. Okay, so this is going to show you the status of your Linode. So you've used 0% of your monthly transfer. We haven't used any of our storage. We need to create a hard drive for this thing, and graphs are not yet available because this thing's too new. So, you know, it's pretty crazy. So what we want to do is deploy an image. Now, Sandstorm, these are all the different options you have. These are pre-built images that are going to work with Linode. Sandstorm recommends Ubuntu 14.04 LTS at this time. They're probably always going to recommend the long-term version of Ubuntu. And so it's possible that by the time this video is out, or the time you're watching this, that 16.04 the long-term support is out or whatever. I don't know, so it'll be fine. We're going to create this and we're going to go ahead and set the root password. And this is going to go through and create a new Ubuntu 14.04 installation for us in the cloud. Whenever you say in the cloud, all the technical people that really know what they're doing just cringe a little bit and they die on the inside. It's like, oh, I've deployed it to the cloud. It's like, the cloud just means on somebody else's computer.
Yeah, there is no cloud.
There's no such thing as a cloud.
That's like a Zen thing. There is no cloud.
With Linode, you've got a lot of options for accessing your system. There's sort of a virtual KVM called Lish, the Linode console terminal thing, but you can also use SSH. But this thing has a neat facility for deploying SSH keys, so you don't even use a password necessarily.
Booting is important.
So hit the remote access tab so we can take a look. Alright, so this is showing us our public IP, but also a root access, but also our Lish console here at the bottom. Okay, so once your Linode is booted up, you would come to the remote access tab, and this is going to give you the SSH options. Now, historically, Linode would not actually let you SSH as root. You had to install a public key if you wanted to SSH as root. However, because there's a lot of noobs using their service, they now allow that. So you can use PuTTY and SSH directly into the root at the IP address that you see there, or whatever your Linode says, not mine. Or you can use the Lish console. The Lish console is more likely to let you log in as root in case you have a security issue or something like that. It just depends on a particular flavor of Linux that you've installed. I'm not really sure, but the Lish console is like you were physically sitting at your machine, and the PuTTY login window is just normal login over the internet through SSH. Now, it is super important that you pick a secure password, because as soon as this machine comes online, 385 bots from all corners of the internet, all corners of criminal enterprise on the internet, are trying to break into this machine pretty much as soon as it's online.
And they're counting on you to have a weak password because you're new.
Alright, so I think the first thing that we want to do is install more robust firewall software, and because this is Ubuntu, the easiest thing I can think of is probably Arno IP tables firewall. So do apt-get install aptitude. Alright, it's already installed. Then do aptitude search. Yes, alright, so what we want to do is install aptitude install Arno-IP tables-firewall. Now the Arno IP tables firewall script, it's a handy one, and there might be something better, but I like it, so we're going to use it. Do ifconfig over here, ETH0, 22, 80, and 443. So what we're doing is opening up port 22, which is your SSH port, port 80, which is your unencrypted HTTP port, and port 443, which is your encrypted HTTP port. I'm not sure that we're going to need any OpenUDP ports. We don't have any internal network interfaces. And let's restart the firewall. Alright, so if you get a lot of garbage output like this in red, basically you can ignore it. Linode has done something here, and their modules.dev.bin is something that Kmod needs to insert the kernel modules to figure out what the dependencies are. Just ignore it, it's probably alright, because if you do iptables-l, we can see that our iptables rules are actually installed. So Arno creates a lot of things that are useful in terms of dropping things like SYN floods and excessive acts and stealth port scans and a lot of cool things like that, where it's limited to 3 types of packets per minute, and this really beefs up the default Ubuntu firewall. Basically, the default Ubuntu firewall is almost completely wide open. This really locks it down to where that it's not like that. Now, also note, we only allowed port 22, 80, and 443. These are the ports for SSH, HTTP, and encrypted HTTP, which we mentioned before. There's no port for email. There's no port for IMAP, for picking up email. So sending or receiving email is not going to work in this configuration. This box could send email, but it could not receive email, and you, as an external user, could not pick up your email from this box. So we would need to address that in this module if we want to run that. But if you don't plan to run email on your box, yeah, you don't need to worry about it. If you do plan to run email on your box, you can do a dpkg-reconfigure Arno IP tables firewall and open port 25 and 143 and maybe 995 and some other ports that are associated with email.
And restart. Same errors as before.
That's just Linode being Linode. Oh well, that's probably fine. Okay, now we are ready to install Sandstorm, believe it or not. Sandstorm is really just a shell script that you run. Now, you should note that if you're running this at home, like you may be thinking, oh, this is just a virtual machine. I can run this in VirtualBox or under KVM or even as a jail, on FreeNAS or something like that. Although I think you probably would end up running as a VirtualBox on FreeNAS, now that I think about it. But you may be thinking, oh, I can totally do this at home. Well, not quite. Sandstorm wants you to port forward port 80 and 443 minimally to the internal VM. So if you go on your home firewall, if you're going to do this on a computer that's just not naked on the internet, you would have to forward those ports through the firewall instead of just opening them. Because this Linode is on the internet, those ports will be available for a service to connect to it. And for Sandstorm to do some of the stuff that it does, Sandstorm's central servers need to be able to connect to your servers in order to be able to interact with it. You will need to be able to connect to your internal machines in order to be able to interact with it. Now, strictly speaking, that's not the whole story, but for the purposes of this video, that's what you need to know. If you are going to run one of these internally, you need to go ahead and forward those ports through your firewall to the virtual machine that you set up. But, as we can see with this machine, it already has a public IP address. Now let's set up Sandstorm. Sandstorm.io.
Why do I not have?
My control or alt or something got stuck, probably. Thanks, Google.
Oh, they didn't. Could they really have made that bug?
Oh, because it was full screen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, come on, Google.
We found a bug in Google. Alright, so this is Sandstorm.io. Now, if you did your homework from the last video, you would have already looked at this, and you would have already gone through the quick demo and that kind of thing. So we're just going to jump straight to Get Sandstorm. Now, these are the options if you want to host it yourself. $9 a month, 10 gigs of storage, unlimited grains, $24 a month, and you get 100 gigs. So the $9 a month one is maybe a worse deal than Linode, and the $24 a month one is maybe a better deal than Linode, depending on what you want for storage and compute power and that sort of thing. But the free version, 200 meg, hey, that's an option. This is a reasonable service overall.
Now, if you get this server, do you have the same level of freedom as you would with Linode, or is this just limited to Sandstorm?
This is just limited to Sandstorm. That's a great question. The deal with Sandstorm is it's just Sandstorm. The deal with Linode is you can do whatever the hell you want. So for things that Sandstorm does not do or does not yet do, like OwnCloud, I'll let you in on a little secret. It doesn't do OwnCloud. We kind of like OwnCloud. There's probably going to be OwnCloud support really soon. It also doesn't do BitTorrent all that great. But those are things you can deal with directly on your Linode instance at the shell level. So even though you can't do those things with Sandstorm, you can do those things, after the fact.
But on the positive side, you are much less on your own as far as defending this and keeping it up to date, right?
Yes, right. So when you're when you're doing it yourself, yeah, you'll need it. And so this is just an install. Now the old grizzled Unix administrator in me is like, you should never do this the way that this is installing. What this is doing, curl this pipe bash, is literally just saying, connect to this website, and whatever this website says to run, just run it, it's fine. And it's like, as an old grizzled Unix administrator, it's like, what are you doing? Well, no, this is bad. This is like downloading some random program from the internet and just letting it run willy-nilly. This is not a good idea.
It's like taking candy from the free candy van.
It's just so bad. But because we don't really have a lot invested in this machine. I mean, this machine is there's really not a lot going on here. We just created it like 13 seconds ago. So it's like we're gonna see what happens with the free candy from the free candy van, and if it turns into the zombie outbreak, well, we can just nuke it from orbit. It'll be fine.
I'm pretty sure there's no razor blades in this Reese cup. Pretty sure. A lot of my friends are eating them.
All Alright, and so this is going to ask us some questions. It's like, are you a developer or do you want to just use this thing? We're going to tell it 1, we just want to use this thing. And it's like, okay, we're going to install it. It's going to automatically keep Sandstorm up to date. We're going to configure auto-renewing HTTPS certificates if you use the subdomain of sandcats.io. Now, in the last video, I walked you through getting your own domain with .tech, the .tech top-level domain. You know, I'm Wendell.tech and all this kind of thing. This is the easy button solution. You can use a custom domain with this, but you'll have to jump through more hoops. And so because this is the easy button video, we're not going to cover custom SSL now. We'll probably cover that in a later video if there's enough interest in it. It's not really super complicated to use, but if you didn't pick up a custom domain name from the last video, no worries. You don't really need one to use it with Sandstorm, and you can still have HTTPS and you can still have your own domain name. It's just that your domain name is going to be a subdomain of their domain name.
So here we can choose the subdomain that we want. So what are we going to call this?
I'm always bad at naming things. PWNED. I wonder if anybody has. Wonder if anybody's got the PWNED. Hey, no one is using Pwned. I guess that's good. Alright, so what it's doing right now is communicating with the Sandcat server, and it's issuing an SSL certificate to pwned.sandcats.io. See, the way this works is that there's a whole bunch of different open source packages that you saw in the first part of this video, hopefully. But they're all different projects. They're all different developers working on stuff, and they're all just different, different crazy whatevers. And they don't really have anything to do with one another. And so what the Sandstorm people have done is really put together a packaging system so that all these things from different developers can coexist peacefully on one server. The way that they're doing that is subdomains. So it'll be like something.somethingelse.yourdomainname.com, or in this case, something.pwned.sandcats.io, because this is the most effective way for them to isolate basically everything that's running on this machine from everything else. So if there's a security issue with one thing, it doesn't affect the whole server, or at least it minimizes the chances that it's going to affect the whole server. And having followed this project for a while, they do have about a 95% success rate mitigating security issues from the different packages that they run that don't really have anything to do with one another. So now this is saying, hey, we can go to this URL, and this URL is only good for 15 minutes, so hopefully it's safe to include in a video. But now it's saying, hey, we can go to this video and finish configuring stuff.
And it's important to note, and we ran into this, you can use this command to generate a new token when you've used up all of your 15 minutes and gotten it wrong.
Alright, so the next thing to do will be to test that this thing can actually send email, because in order for you to be able to log in, you've got to either use your Google login, your GitHub login, or a passwordless email login. Now, it's not really passwordless. You get an authorization token, so the account is associated with your email address, but every time you use a different computer, you have to authorize that computer to be able to use the system. So we're going to send a test email, and then we're going to enable passwordless email login. Okay, so this was not able to send an email. The reason for this is because there's no email server that we set up back on the Linode side of things. So we can probably verify that real quick by looking at the server details, but that's probably what our error is going to be. Okay, yeah, so this says error connection refused. It couldn't send email. So what it's trying to do is connect to the underlying Ubuntu machine to do something. So this is probably a bug in their installer script. It's cool, we'll fix it. So probably the easiest thing to do is aptitude install postfix. Said no system administrator ever. At least one that knew what they were doing. It's fine. And so this is going to walk us through configuring the mail server. So yeah, this is an internet site. The host name is going to be pwned.sandcats.io. And now we're configured thanks to the the appropriately apt package management system. Tech Syndicate, come for the technical knowledge, stay for the bad puns. Oops.
Oh. There we go.
Look at that, it's magical. Now we just have to wait 15 minutes for it to come through. Okay, the test email came through okay, so let's save the configuration and then invite ourselves to be admins. Oh, more than 15 minutes have passed.
Oh. So as we discussed earlier, when it takes too long for your email to arrive, use this command to get a new token when our token times out. And this will give us a key, and this key will allow us to access this account.
In order to actually use it, it has to verify our email address matches what we just configured. So, okay, so it did not actually save that we allow email-based login.
Ah, because the session was dead when we saved. So you'll be able to be sure to set that for your token times out, or remember to do it again.
Just reload. You know what to put in your email again?
And this time we're sending the actual user invite for real.
And then you get a token. And then you can use that token to actually get access to the system. Alright, once you've gotten your token, your invitation link and your token, you can confirm your profile.
And be sure to select your preferred pronoun, because that's critical for your setup.
I definitely identify as robot. Alright, we've got Sandstorm installed. Now we can set up some apps. So there's a whole bunch of apps that they have. Now the bad news is that there's not really a good BitTorrent client that I've been able to find so far, and there's not OwnCloud. A lot of these package names are probably not going to be familiar to you unless you've already done a lot of work on the open source scene, and that's okay. A lot of open source projects suffer from that they really don't get enough marketing. They're actually very good projects. The one you're probably most likely to have heard of is WordPress. It's a very popular blogging platform. It's very often dangerously insecure, or historically the security track record has been somewhere between awful and blogging software. So overall, not bad though. And so if we want to install WordPress as a blogging software, we're going to install it. But the great thing about it is that when we install it, it's going to be containerized, and the Sandstorm functionality means that the Sandstorm mechanisms are going to keep it up to date for us. All right, thanks very much to Grizzle for helping us do that. Now, if you have any questions, we're hanging out in the forums over at techsyndicate.com. If you've got a particularly awesome setup with this or something like this that you want to show off to the rest of the group, well, head on over to the forums at techsyndicate.com. Let us know. I'm Wendell, I'm signing out, and I'll see you there.